Hello everyone. We're finally in the greenhouse. It's a bit messy just now because I'm in the middle of getting some seeds sown and stuff. But finally we have a cold, slightly rainy grey day, which means it's spring in Scotland. I'm only just making a start on things getting planted now, and I've been watching all these bloggers down south talking about all their seedlings and how big their seedlings are and what's coming up, and it is really frustrating. So I'm here, I'm in relatively good health, and we can start getting planted. Because Annie, who follows us on the blog, and if you don't follow the blog, I'll put a link up. I would totally recommend it because I do way more on the blog than I do on YouTube, and it's a larger variety of things. So go over there and have a look at the blog. But Annie has said she's wanting to grow petunias from seed for the very, very first time this year. And when you look about online about growing petunias, people seem to think that it's really scary and really difficult. And I said to her, it is absolutely not. So we're going to do that together. So first thing we need then is what you're going to grow them in. Now, here's a tip. Petunias are teeny tiny little seeds, like as small as maybe ground pepper, that small. So you really can't, without a lot of effort, go planting one seed at a time in a pot. Okay, so we're going to do this by sprinkling the seeds, and I find it easier to use a tray to do that. And I will sprinkle the seeds over the length and width of this tray, and then when those little plants are ready, they can be pricked out and moved on that way. But I just find it easier to go this way. Okay, so, and we've got potting soil here, okay? So firstly, it's peat free. So what you'll find with peat free is it's very, very loose and very fibrous, okay? But importantly, when we're doing seedlings, we don't want really good quality soil. We don't want stuff with all the nutrients added into it, okay? And the reason for that is that these little seedlings don't want too much richness because it can damage them when they're young and they're really, really susceptible, okay? We will put them in a richer compost when we move it on. But secondly, it needs to be proper for growing seeds in, because it needs to be this very, very fine mix, because obviously the seeds, and when they sprout and the root systems are really, really small and delicate, they can't fight their way through loads of big chunks of things, so it has to be nice and fine. Okay, so we're going to fill up our seed tray, and what I do, because when your compost is sitting, whether it's in a bag or it's in a bucket like I keep it in, it compacts and you get lumps. So as I'm putting it in the tray for these little seeds, I'm just doing this, just running it through my hands to get rid of any lumps. And you can feel them in your fingers and break them up. Now you can see here just how fibrous this is. It's not heavy, it's not full of lumps. I've strained out as much as I can, because even really fine stuff you buy will sometimes have little bits of stick and things in it. So you just sieve all that out as much as you can and fill your tray up. And then, once it's filled up, we're going to just firmly press it down. Okay, now I'm just using my hands here. You can, what have I got handy? Let's see. Okay, my handy old margarine tub. You can use the bottom of this, and you can use that to press down the soil, okay, if you don't want to use your hands. Or some people, like me, might have really tiny hands and you don't get a lot done that way, so you can use that. Okay, so there we go. First thing, we have our soil in our tray, and we're going to water this now. Yep, the astute amongst you will have noticed the cut there. I left my watering can out the tap. Right, so water. A really, really good soak. And then we can get going. So, seeds. As well as all the stuff that you guys saw me collecting around the garden, I grow a lot of these, so I've gone and bought some. Now, also, confession time, I bought some just to make sure, because I thought if I'm going to do this for you guys, I want to make sure they're going to take. So just in case, I bought some rather than just use the ones from the garden. Now, what you can see here, that is how tiny and small petunia seeds are. Okay. Now you know why I was saying they're so difficult to sow if you're not careful. So, petunia seeds. So here's something I do. You guys know that I'm trying to stop just doing one-off plastic. So I try and reuse as much as I can when I can. So normally I do little paper pots, but because I have all this random stuff, I'm not doing that this year. I'm using what I've got. But for something like my petunias, because there's so few of the seeds, I just need a small pot. So I don't need a big seed tray. So then I'm going to wipe my hands off. This is a good tip. Always keep a cloth or something to wipe your hands off, because if your hands are dirty, you can't see seeds because most seeds are black, and if they're damp, the seeds will stick and it's quite difficult to handle. So I always keep an old rag in the greenhouse for that. Right. Try and just knock them all off the top there so I don't miss out, and very carefully pop it open. And we're just sprinkling. Okay, that's that done. Now here's a trick. I've just sprinkled that, I'm fine with that. If you're nervous at all, there's a trick you can do with petunia seeds or seeds that are that small. And what you can do is you can mix it with sand, because then you can sprinkle the sand and you can see where you're putting the sand, so you know if you put them evenly across your tree or whatever. So there's a trick. But here's the next thing. I am not going to put any soil on top of this, or any gravel or grit or anything on top. And this is the thing. When I was saying about people worry about petunia seeds and how difficult they are to grow, they're actually not. But the thing is, petunia seeds need light. So if you cover them with even a thin layer of soil, there's less light getting through, there's less chance of them germinating, okay? So you don't put anything on top, you just leave that as it is. The soil got up, we gave it a water before, so it's nice and wet. We put the seeds on there and we just leave that be and we just wait. Now, the packets will always tell you about 2 weeks for your seeds to germinate. Experience tells me, and again, our climate, I know that it's possibly going to be 3 or 4 before I get anything germinating in this. But what I'll do is I'll put them inside my propagators just to try and keep it moist and keep as much, so I use the term heat loosely, as much warmth and moisture in there as I possibly can. But that is petunias. So I'm going to go on with some sunflowers and things now. Now this is something I do, obviously I haven't done this with the petunias, but I do it with most seeds, and is that I put a little layer of gravel on top, just because it helps to keep the moisture in the soil and stops it drying out too quickly. Because as you can imagine, in a greenhouse with a lot of light, they dry out quite fast. Right, I'm going to have to make up some little name tags for these guys now. Or I'll forget what's in there. But I hope that's been fun for you guys. So this is the beginnings. I'm just getting started on planting. I've got so much more to do. But get out into your gardens and get going, because spring's coming. Excellent. See you next time, guys.